Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Our topic for this evening is action and persistence. And to follow up that, the next lesson after the romantic one is about motivation. So I want to make the distinction between persistence and motivation. And we'll talk about motivation next. But tonight, it's action and persistence. Now, there are lots of different ways where we, in essence, sabotage ourselves about taking action or about being persistent. And so this is a topic that means needing to get to know ourselves very well. Because really and truly, it's not rocket science. Taking action is just going ahead and doing something. And persistence is not stopping, right? So taking action and persistence means somehow or another figuring out and knowing yourself well enough so that you know how to keep yourself going and that you know enough about yourself and what you want to take action steps. Now, if we don't have a list of action steps, if we haven't, I'm looking down here at my chat, if we don't have an idea of which action we want to take next, then probably we're not going to be very successful at our action steps or getting things done. So that means that coming back to being efficient and effective with our action steps or the things that we need to get done means developing ways of thinking about it and organizing our time, energy, and planning so that the action steps are doable and get done. And there's a lot of assistance that we can give ourselves to make sure that we are effective with taking action. Okay, I'm going to type and I hope you can type to me. Welcome to live. Voila. So I am very interested in your concerns or questions about the topic tonight or about whatever it is that's on your mind. So welcome, and I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and your comments. And thank you for tuning in tonight. So, action. Tell me, do you have a problem taking action? Sometimes, and as usual, there's a continuum, so that on one side, we've got someone who takes action all the time, and then on the other side, someone who has a hard time getting going and taking action. And everything in the middle, of course. And it depends on what it is that we want to accomplish, how to manage our time and energy, and what actions to take. So that means that, you know, the follow-up to advanced goal setting, which I talked about, is action steps. And sometimes we need strategies for our action. And sometimes we need planning. And sometimes we need action steps. Now, just because we have those doesn't mean that we actually take those steps. So what we want to do is set ourselves up to be successful at figuring out where we want to place our energy, what is it that is meaningful to us and our life, and being successful in our life, and how to make those things happen. And you know, there's the classic example we have of there are action items that are there every day, day after day, like taking out the garbage, like making a meal, doing the dishes, cutting the lawn, doing the laundry. Those are action items in the physical world that need to get done. There are also action steps like making your hotel reservation for a vacation, or writing a letter to your grandmother, or making sure that the kids get on the school bus in time. So various different action steps that are necessary for us to get the kind of life that we want. So those of you who have chimed in tonight, and thank you for doing that, would you give me some examples of what action steps are important to you, and if you're doing well with them, or if there are some of them that aren't working very well? So one of the things that I have learned is that fear of failure gets in the way. I mentored a young person years ago who needed to go to college and had tasks to do in order to prepare for college, to get homework done, to get good grades and all of that thing. And that this person had a fear of failure, which means knowing what the action steps were, very capable of doing the action, and yet not doing it. Maybe thinking about it, maybe not thinking about it. Maybe being busy doing other things and yet not taking the action steps that really were at the top of the list of importance for quality of life. And so what was in the way? This is what we want you to make friends with. So if you have a fear of failure, there is a part of you that has a fear of failure. Which part has an irrational fear? Oh, the fear of, I've got a comment. Yay. The fear of failure definitely gets in the way for you. So, the fear of failure. Now, if we think that one through, there's something that we assume is going to be a consequence of failing. If we're going to avoid it, then if we assume that we are going to get something bad from failing, that's the real thing. It's not the failure itself, it's the outcome of the failure, right? So then the outcome of the failure is going to be sometimes internal and sometimes external, sometimes both. Usually the internal consequence is going to make us feel inadequate or flawed, or like we've wasted our time. And that means that somewhere along the line, our development of our own self-confidence and our trust in ourselves and in our own goodness was disrupted by somebody or something, oftentimes clumsy parenting, where our parents really didn't know how to empower kids. So that fear of failure usually comes from the outside, because naturally we aren't born with that fear of failure inside ourselves. If we fail, it's like, okay, what do we got and what are we going to do next? So we want to make friends with that part of you that's afraid of failure. That part probably is afraid of the value judgment that we place on ourselves, or how we assess ourselves as being a good person. And then perhaps if you're living with somebody who is judgmental or in some way cuts you down or makes you feel bad, we're worried about that kind of insult or harm or injury that that kind of person would deliver to us. So let's see. Thanks, Heather. Until you clarified the idea of fear of the outcome rather than fear of failure, I wasn't able to understand fear of success. That fear never made sense to me until now. Thank you. Yes! And it's just logical, isn't it? So what is the outcome that scares you? Now, it may be that it's nothing external to you anymore. Because if you're tuning in, you're probably out of high school. May not be, but probably. So then the outcome that's exterior to you may or may not still be something of consequence. Now, if it is an abusive boss that you have or an abusive spouse, then you can't get away from it. And that means if somebody is delivering you an injury emotionally, mentally, physically, then that's not healthy, and we want you to get away from it. We want you to stop having something in your environment that injures you or harms you or hurts you. And so sometimes that means marriage counseling, right? Sometimes that means looking for a new job. Sometimes that means talking to human resources and saying, this person is interfering with my job effectiveness by being, how do we say, abusive in some form, and that's illegal now. Some companies do deal with that better than other companies do. But that exterior abuse or that exterior squashing or that exterior insult is not okay. It's unhealthy, and adults, healthy, intelligent adults, do something to solve that problem. Sometimes it takes a while, sometimes it's difficult, sometimes you just need to finish the last semester of that particular class where it's making you feel bad because the teacher isn't any good, but you still need to be able to make a complaint. So that's the exterior. Okay. Any comments about that, you guys? I mean, I know I'm oversimplifying, and that you're probably going to say if your exterior fear of failure is some kind of lack that you have or some kind of abuse that you're experiencing, sometimes it's not just a finger snap to change that or to get away from that. But that's something that you can decide to take action about, right? To stop whatever it is that's hurting you or getting in your way. So tell me if you've got something there that's exterior to you that you're having a hard time figuring out how to get yourself away from, how to protect yourself. Because then I'll go into the, of course, interior part, and that's much more difficult. Because if the fear of failure, the result of your failure is your own abuse to yourself, then nobody's going to stop that one. Nobody even knows about that one probably other than you. And the first thing that I would want to do is I would want to take that self-talk, that part of you, that attitude, that system of beliefs, and I would want us to separate you from it. I would want you to say, here's the part of me that makes me feel bad when I don't do things the right way or imperfectly, or I mess up, or I just, there's another term for messing up, blow it. When you blow it. We're human. We blow it all the time, right? And if it's something that we want to be accountable for or something that has harmed somebody else, we definitely want to be sensitive to that and do something to ameliorate the situation, or to make recompense, or to apologize and get forgiveness. We want to clean that up. But if it's something in us that breaks us down and it's really not healthy or kind or effective, then there's something there for us to make friends with and to grow in a new direction. So, comments, thoughts about that from my wonderful listeners tonight. And thank you. Thank you for your thoughts. This is fabulous. So the fear of success, yep, the fear of failure, same deal. It's like, what is the outcome that you're afraid you're going to get? Which part of you is afraid of success or failure? And I submit that that part of you isn't very wise, isn't very mature, probably very young. Because if it's afraid of a failure or a success, it's not an adult, right? Because if you're an adult, you know you're going to mess up. You know you're going to blow it. You know you're going to put your foot in your mouth. You know that you're going to wear 2 different color socks sometimes, whatever it is. You know you're going to maybe hurt somebody's feelings because you said the wrong thing. And then what are you going to do if you're an adult? You're going to go take care of it. And you know how to take care of it, or you know how to approach taking care of it. And if you're afraid of success, then what is it that you can't handle? I mean, we all want success, right? So if there's a part of you that can't handle success, it's not the grown-up part. It's not the inner executive part. So it's probably a sensitive and immature part. It's probably part of your teenager or your inner child or your little kid. So let's see. I got a howdy. Perhaps the fear of unknown change. Oh, very good. The fear of unknown change. Yes, you can't predict how it's going to turn out, right? So, what kind of change? What kind of unknown change? Give me a little example of which kind of change you might be afraid of. Success can bring changes one didn't bank on. Ooh, yeah. Away from family. Indeed. So then, if you're looking at that through immature eyes, you're probably going to have fears, or people will be away from routine. There you go. Now, if you think about people who were born into a family that were mobile, like somebody who was in a military career, somebody who worked for a large corporation with offices many different places, sometimes internationally. Those families moved various times and developed the flexibility to go with that change, take it in their stride. They develop certain strengths, and there are other things that perhaps they aren't developed in, like it's easy for them to move from one place to another, and it's hard for them to connect deeply because their ties are broken continuously. So, yeah, there are things that you can't bank on, and yet, if we bank on too many things and we get that place where we get too much routine, after a while, probably your life kind of settles in and it's not really life-giving anymore. It's just life-preserving and just kind of even and probably boring. So the fear of unknown change, that means that you haven't really thought about change. And so if we're thinking about change, and we get a grown-up view of it, right? Change equals letting go and grieving and creating new, right? So if we're adults, we know that that's how it works. And if nobody has taught you that you let go because you've lost something, and you get sad about that you've let go of something, and then you move on to something new, which is always better. Let's see, we've got a comment here. I think I worry about giving up to expectations, particularly those of my family and my mentors. Well said. Inherent in that says that you're accountable to expectations, which says that you're accountable to what you think is the best, is the good thing. And that will serve you extremely well until you figure out that there are some people who have expectations that don't fit in your system of values, don't fit in what it is that you think is important. Isn't there a very cool origin of the word crisis? I cannot recall it. Yes, there is, dear. Crisis is, it's in Asia, it means one of them is two women under one roof, and that the crisis means that it's also, there are two symbols in the Asian pictograph where the top one is crisis or change, and then the bottom one is opportunity. So that if, as I described, change means letting go of something, grieving a little because we've lost something, and then looking forward. And that means change, looking forward to something new and better. And it's up to us to make it new and better, right? So that's the opportunity. If there is a change, you're going to let go of something. And then you have an opportunity to recreate, or to redecide, or to add, or to clean it up, or to make it better, or to move forward, or to advance, or to, now that you made the mistake, you know you're going to do it better the next time. So change is opportunity, right? Danger and opportunity. So worrying about living up to expectations. So expectations can also be thought of as beliefs. And beliefs are built on the things that we value. When we're kids, of course, if we're pretty healthy kids, we are going to believe in what the adults show us and teach us. We're going to believe that that's the best thing, or that's the good thing, or that's the thing that we're faithful to. And as we mature, we find out that the previous generation had certain beliefs that we dutifully and responsibly bought into, and that, guess what? The next generation says there are better ways. Always has been, always will be, I think. So, and that means if there are better ways, then we're going to have to change our beliefs. We're going to have to change our expectations. And if I were to look at all of the teaching I've done over the years and just think about the thing that floats to the top when people tell me that it is the source of their chief stressor, chief difficulty in life. Do you know what it is? Just what you said. So this is the big doozy, and this is the big baddie. Unrealistic expectations. Worst stressor. This creates overwhelm. And then we're overwhelmed, there's too much, we don't know what to do about it, and we just, get in a tizzy. So those expectations now, Miss Grogan, since you gave me your name, well, but only known after the fact. Yes, that's how we learn, right? We have to know it first. Then adjustments. Yes, absolutely. That's how we learn. You've got to have something to learn about before you can improve it, right? And we're not going to be able to make improvements in our beliefs or our expectations until we grow up. Because we're going to be pretty much, if we're a good average person, we're going to be respectful and accountable to the things that our parents sincerely teach us. And we're going to say, okay, I'm going to be, as best I can, true to those things that you tell me are worthy, which is my values, right? And then the beliefs built on the values that my parents showed me and taught me, which is a good person. And as we grow, we're going to question those. And that oftentimes comes in adolescence, which, as we know, is between 13 and 30. We're going to question those beliefs that we have been dutiful to or devoted to. And we're going to, one at a time, say, now, wait a minute, is this who I am? Do I really believe this? Is this how I want to succeed? Is this what I want to be afraid of? Well, come to think of it, why should I be afraid of that? As we started tonight with being afraid of failure, being afraid of success, well, is that what I really want to believe? To be afraid of failure? No, because it happens all the time. I do it all the time. Want to be afraid of success? No, because I'm healthy enough to really want success. Then we start saying, wait a minute, I've got this belief. Is that me? No, that's something that I learned. So let me take that and place it outside of me. And that part of me that's still holding on to it is going to always hold on to it because it's pretty young, right? It's however old we were when we got that belief. Cool. Does that make sense, you all? So we're looking at unrealistic expectations being the foundation of false beliefs and therefore the most discomfort that we find in life. So unrealistic expectations, interesting. Most of us are pretty intelligent. We can pretty much understand life. And yet, where does this unrealistic come from? So, if we're looking at unrealistic, that means that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't relate to reality. And if we are unrealistic, then we don't have what I think of our feet firmly planted on the ground. I was mentoring a young executive recently about his unrealistic expectations. And he has a problem with impatience and anger. And so what we wanted to do was explore where his impatience and anger came from. Well, guess what? He's a very smart guy. He's a very action-oriented guy. He gets more done than most 5 people put together. And he's successful beyond most people 5 to 10 years older than him. So is he the average? he's way above average. And he gets himself in trouble because of unrealistic expectations. And what are those unrealistic expectations? He expects other people to be as smart as he is, to be as action-oriented as he is, to be as principled as he is, and to be as energetic as he is. Are they? No. So his expectations get in the way of him seeing the reality. He's assuming that other people are like him, and you say, well, what did they do that for? Why don't they do it this way? Well, how come they're not doing it the way I want it to be done? Well, because he has certain abilities that most other people do not have. And what we discussed is that as soon as he stops and gets realistic, he's then going to be even more successful with people, because he's going to accept them as they are, not unrealistically, not trying to make them something different, or hoping they're something different, or being frustrated that he can't make them be something different. So once he accepts people as they really are, and has realistic expectations of them, guess what? He's going to really like them better, and he's going to get more success with the people that he works with. So we want to get, let's see what I've got here. I get it. Most people kind of suck, so chill out. I am kidding. Yes, you better be. Bad attitude. I think a big source of misunderstanding is expecting people to read your mind. Intellectual empathy. Well, if you expect other people to read your intellectual empathy is much better. Well, yes, if you expect other people to read your mind, then somewhere along the way, you got unrealistic expectations about communication and how people convey information. And, you know, obviously mind reading is a myth. And you must have experienced something when you were younger with people who had inadequate communication skills. And wouldn't that be just about every one of us? How many people have you got in your life, adult people, who are remarkable communicators? We're just learning how to do that. So expecting people to read your mind is another unrealistic belief, right? And if you expect someone to read your mind and you're not willing or not able to communicate fully, then you're putting yourself in the victim role, and you're really the one accountable for this. But instead of taking accountability for communicating better, placing the finger of blame on somebody who isn't able to read your mind. So again, what we do is we put the power in your hands. You're not a victim. Obviously, if you're tuning in, you're very literate, and you can communicate accurately and fully. So then, if you're not doing that, there's obviously some part of you, again, that we want to make friends with that is unwilling to communicate fully or is afraid to communicate fully. Maybe again because of the outcomes of communicating fully in an inappropriate way with people where it's none of their business, or they're not going to take it well, or they're not going to take it accurately, right? Let's see here. I wanted to comment on that. Each of us has our strengths. And each of us, there are other people like us in the world, and lots of other people who are not like us in the world. Each of us has our place where the style that we have is extremely useful to us and to other people. And we want to be able to be respectful and accurate with understanding those differences and taking advantage of those differences. So if I just described a young leader, and not all of us are leaders, of course. Each one of us has a place where we shine. So like, for example, this one about, I think the worst part of my unrealistic expectations is that they are my own constructions. My family and my mentors are very supportive. Very cool. I think I skipped over that one, didn't I? Oh no, that's the new one. Yet I still fear that I will let them down by pursuing something more creative rather than intellectual or lucrative. I'm sure you are not alone in that fear. That says you love your mentors. That says you love your family, and that you are genuinely accountable to them and wanting to do the respectful thing for them. And yet, you are now an adult because obviously you're pursuing something. And I know that there are cultures where the child is supposed to be responsible for the parent. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, Like Water for Chocolate, which is a movie about a certain cultural tradition where one of the children is supposed to be the family, the caretaker of the mom and dad. And that they're supposed to eschew their own goals, their own values, their own passions, their own goals and purpose and mission in life, and make it just about taking care of mom and dad through their death. Kind of like a nursemaid or a servant or a parent of the parent. So, like a slave. And in our country, we've outlawed slavery. And if we are accountable to someone else, they need to hire us to do that. Otherwise, we're accountable to equality and freedom for all people, right? So when you're an adult, you deprive the world and your maker, your creator, of your talents, the talents that God gave you, usually out of respect to our creator, to our God. We need to use our talents, right? I like when Jack says, if we're not using our talents or refining them, then it's in a certain way an insult to our creator that gave us those talents. And so we want to be true to why we came here. And I don't believe that we came here to serve other people in the sense of compromising our own talents and our own purpose and mission. Unless that is our genuine purpose and mission. I mean, I know that there are people who are remarkably gifted at, for example, working in hospice, where they tend to the people who are transitioning out of life, who have a terminal illness. And that's in their heart to do. It's their gift. It's their talent to give the world. But if that's not your talent, what if your talent is to, like you said, to do something more creative? Who said that intellectual is better than creative? Who said that lucrative is better than creative? Those are old-fashioned beliefs from generations ago and from people who were still struggling with trying to figure out how to create a good and healthy life. You know that, we all know, we've heard it for decades, money doesn't buy happiness. So being lucrative, having lucre, yes, poverty is horrible. We definitely don't want poverty. But once we have a paycheck and a job that pays our rent, that doesn't have to be lucrative. It just means being responsible for yourself and getting a job where you get a paycheck, or doing work where people pay you naturally for the good work that you do, which means not focusing really on having to be rich or having to make money or having to be wealthy or having to compromise your integrity to get paid, in our country at least, is doing something that's useful. And if it's useful, people are happy to pay you for things that are useful. So it's more about what's useful. And if you're a creative, then creativity is useful everywhere. And it just means finding a place where your creativity belongs and thrives. I was delighted to be in the art museums in Seattle recently. And I enjoyed looking at the native arts of the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, and how there, I was looking at the carvings of some of the Indian peoples, how beautiful they are. And you know, maybe there's only one person who wants to be a carver, but that person then teaches the young ones. Just if you're creative, and just giving lessons to the young ones is a place where you earn enough to pay for your basic living needs. So what we know today, and I know that this information is freely available. The creative ventures in life, whether we're teaching them or doing them or having them in a social or I guess avocation or artful part of our lifestyle, they are the ones that add quality to life beyond just work, beyond just punching a time clock, right? So if you're questioning whether or not you can be more creative rather than intellectual or lucrative, I would say you're still listening to old-fashioned, unrealistic beliefs, false beliefs, and that there is a part of you that's obviously responsible, dutiful, obedient, and to the old ways, the old respectful ways. This is in the way of respect your elders, right? Respect what you were taught. And yet, if all the new generations did that, we'd never move forward. We'd never have innovation. We wouldn't have quality of life. We would still just be an industrial society. Does that make sense? Is that adding up? Because what I want you to do is individuate from that part of you whom we really respect, the part of you that's dutiful and kind and respectful and obedient to the authority. And now move the authority away from your parents or the adults and move the authority into your own sense of your purpose and mission in life. Because if you're trying to meet the needs of a parent or an authority figure and you're an adult, then that's, we can actually call that emotional incest, where we're meeting the needs of the adult rather than our own values, rather than our own call to a purpose and mission. Because we're not here to meet their needs. They are here to meet their needs. Unless, your mother or your father is your boss. And then, of course, you're accountable to your employer. Heavy, somebody says. Okay, let's see here. Okay, good. So yeah, maybe it is heavy, but this question about pursuing something more creative rather than intellectual or lucrative, there is a certain part of our population that says intellectual is more important than art, right? So if we are in the scientific community, those people are definitely more into what's intellectual, logical, measurable. And there are people who shine in that community. They're passionate about it. It fires them up. They do fabulous things. Then there's the engineering community, the building community, and they get fired up about what they do, thank goodness. And then there's the financial community where they get fired up about investing and economics and how the world runs internationally. So we want each of us to be fired up about where we're working and how we're functioning, because that's giving our best to life, right? So if you're not letting yourself be creative because that what I'm hearing is that's where you want to be, and you're still obedient to another community that says intellectualism is more important or lucrative is more important, then those aren't your tribes. And I wouldn't say that those are the people you're accountable to. So then for tonight, the topic of taking action and being persistent. Well, you may be taking action and being persistent according to unrealistic expectations of yourself, where it goes along with somebody else's values and talents and not yours. And that then means that you're probably hindered or squashed or hesitant about taking action and being persistent because you're going through the motions to please somebody else's purpose and mission in life and not your own. This is a really good example, and thank you so much for sharing it. Where we are great with action, where we are great with persistence, where we don't back down, we don't stop, and we keep on keeping on, is where we're on fire, where we love what we're doing, where it's connected directly with what we care about, with what we value. Then we're not going to stop. We're not going to back down. And when we take action, we're giving it everything we got, because we're not afraid of failure. We're not afraid of success. We're just doing what we know is the thing that we care most about. Can you connect with that? Any thoughts here? Quote, whose life is it anyway, unquote, is what I keep hearing. Yeah. And I agree that we should not allow ourselves to be weakened through personal disuse or underutilization. Yet we all share some degree of responsibility for the welfare of others. Do you agree, Heather? Ooh, well said. Okay, responsibility to the welfare of others. So when I think about that, that's definitely has to do with purpose and mission. So, welfare of others. So, purpose and mission, why I'm here. So, is why I'm here to take care of the welfare of others? Yes, of course it is. And And I know you've heard this concept before. Um, and the metaphor that we usually use is put on your oxygen mask first. If you have someone you're accountable for, a child, or a handicapped person, or a wounded person, in other words, a person who is not a capable adult, a person who is not an individual, responsible, functioning adult, you put on your oxygen mask first. Because if I don't make sure that I'm strong and I'm okay, then sooner or later I'm going to run out of what I've got and I won't have anything to give. I can't put on my child's oxygen mask if I'm out of oxygen. And the child isn't capable of doing it on his or her own, right? So, yes, I am responsible to others. And I first have to be responsible, if I'm an adult, for my own health, my own quality of life. If I don't have that, then what I have to offer in being responsible for others is going to be lesser. It's going to be not the best that I can give. So bottom line, there is a separation and individuation that needs to happen with healthy functioning adults, where we are not responsible for our parents or our teachers or our students that grow up, our kids when they leave the nest, and hopefully we empower them to fly and be on their own, and the thread stretches out, doesn't ever snap really because there's always a connection of love there, but there's not commerce back and forth, if you know what I mean. There's not a need in me for what the child gives me once the child is gone. There's a desire and an excitement about when the child comes back or calls me or interacts with me, but I don't need anything from that younger person or that child. Just like when I leave the nest and I start a life of my own, I don't need anything from my parents. I like it when I can have a conversation and mentoring with them, but I'm not accountable to them for meeting their needs or working in the world the way they think somebody should work, because it's not their life, it's not their time, and it's not their style. Only I can know my place, my time, my style, and what I came here to give the world. And what I came here to give the world is the first most important thing for me to do, because nobody else can do that. And if I compromise that by being obedient to someone else, then I am incurring a debt for them. So let's see here. Perhaps a hierarchy of oxygen mask priority is important, both for oneself and for others. Ooh, a hierarchy of oxygen mask. Yes, because when I teach purpose and mission, the first thing that in terms of, first is purpose, and purpose is that I grow me. So the actions I need to take are: purpose is grow myself. Because nobody can grow me but me, right? That's my responsibility. And mission is serve the world, others. And when I articulate purpose, I think about three things. Number one, that I become a more loving human being. Number two, that I become wiser, which means have greater wisdom on how I love, and wisdom and knowledge about my gifts and how I give those to the world in the most effective way. And then the third thing is I become a greater power for good in the world, which means I have something to offer. And then my mission, which means my first oxygen mask is on the little ones, on the children, the people who really need to be taken care of properly because they aren't mature yet. They can't take care of themselves. They can't be accountable for themselves. So the first oxygen mask priority is the little ones, the young ones, the children. Under the age of 18, we help them out, but in their early 20s too, or when it's necessary to help family members out or the youth out. So the first thing is take care of the little ones. Second thing is take care of my day-to-day responsibilities. Nobody is supposed to pay my rent for me. That's me. Nobody's supposed to pay my car payment or my insurance or my phone bill. That's mine, and I'm an adult. I take care of that because that's not a dependent. That's something that I need to do because I'm a grown-up. And then I can serve the world, other adults, other causes, other organizations, businesses, ways that I use the talents that I've developed with my sense of my own purpose and my own abilities. So then the people who pay me for my time and my expertise, they get my next accountability. Now then, of course, we've got family members, we've got friends, we've got social connections, and if they're not children, then they have to come after my development of my talents. So, what do you think about that? That oxygen mask priority. Both for oneself and others. Well said, yes. So your oxygen mask priority for yourself. So first, of course, you want to make sure you get enough sleep. You want to make sure that you eat healthy food. You want to make sure that you're fit, that you get enough exercise, because if you don't have your physical being healthy, then it compromises all the other things that you can be and do and give. So the first action, obviously, is live like an adult in terms of being responsible to putting the oxygen mask on yourself for your own physical fitness. And then, of course, then your own intellectual and emotional fitness. And, of course, that's a long story because that's a multiple system of classes that I like to teach. So your oxygen mask priority first, it's like the hierarchy of needs, right? You've got to put your needs first. Because if you put your next door neighbor before your own needs, sooner or later, you're going to be exhausted and incapable and incompetent. So that would be a priority of oxygen mask. Any thoughts, any questions about that? So what we're talking about tonight is action and persistence, which means getting yourself to take the action that you think is the best and keeping yourself on track with taking action on those which are your priorities. So we have another comment. Given what I've said, it seems the only dilemma then is the question of how much oxygen do I need before I share the mask? Great metaphor. Would you comment on this, Heather? Yes. How much oxygen do I need before I share the mask? It varies, doesn't it? And that, my dear, is about wisdom. So remember I talked about purpose. There are three things. Number one, I need to be a more loving person. Number two, I need to have wisdom. And number three, I need to become something that is a power for good in the world. Wisdom is discernment. Discernment of what is good and what is better. Wisdom is what is it that I say, think, and do that is the loving thing to do. Not the caretaking thing, not the easy thing, Not the on the surface looking pretty thing, but what is the thing of wisdom that is the most respectful in the public sense, kind in the interactive sense, and loving thing in the spiritual sense to do? How do I spend my time and energy, my action, and my persistence so that it is of the utmost grace and discernment? And that's the ultimate lesson of life, isn't it? That takes me to my model for the 6 lifetime dilemmas, where there are 6 scales. Down here, not working very well, not very smart. Down here, not working very well, not very smart. Wanting to go in the middle here to make discerning decisions about what I decide to take action on, what I decide to do. And sometimes it's good, sometimes whoop, and then we bring it back. So it's not static, is it? It's not static for any situation, any person, because things change through life, right? And that means the import of developing the ability to make wise, discerning decisions about how we use our time, talent, and energies, right? So here we come down to the ultimate spiritual dilemma. What is the loving thing to do? What is the wise and discerning thing to do? Okay. Heavy. Well, yeah, I try to talk about the real deal. What is the universal truth underneath this? What is it that you can stand on realistically? Let's see. Maybe it's the scuba thing. You breathe, they breathe. You breathe, they breathe. Go back. Go back to aisle 6. Go back. Heavy. Well, it just depends. They're responsible for their own breathing. They're responsible for their own breathing. Read back. Okay, let's see here. The welfare of others, purpose and mission while I'm here. Okay, let's see here. Whose life is it anyway, is what I keep hearing. And I agree that we should not allow ourselves to be weakened through personal disuse or underutilization, yet we all share some degree of responsibility for the welfare of others. We do. And yet, others share that responsibility for us, right? So then it's a give and take. I'm not responsible to always giving. I'm also responsible to receive the love that others give me. So I'm not just here kind of as a purveyor of taking care of the world. I'm here to be in the interaction with the world of giving and receiving. And you know that if all you do is give, sooner or later you burn yourself out. And if I'm always giving, then I never allow you the honor and the joy of giving to me. So healthy relationships are a give and take. They are a dialogue, a back and forth. It's not just this person taking and this person giving, right? So those are adult relationships. Now, and as I said, we do put on our oxygen mask first, and then the first ones that get our attention are the little ones, or the ones who can't take care of themselves. Sorry about what? 7:59. Yes, it is. Oh, read back at 7:59. Given what you've said, it seems the only dilemma then is how much oxygen do I need before I share the mask? And it changes, doesn't it? If you reduce, thank you for reminding me, beautifully done. If you exhaust yourself If you aren't full of energy and enthusiasm, and you exhaust yourself regularly, then you don't have your best to offer. Sometimes we do, don't we?